Profound thought number 1. Follow the stars in the goldfish bowl. An end. Apparently now and again, adults take the time to sit down and contemplate what a disaster their life is. They complain without understanding, and like flies constantly banging against the same old window pane, they buzz around, suffer, waste away, get depressed, then wonder how they got caught up in this spiral that is taking them where they don't want to go. The most intelligent among them turn their malaise into a religion. Oh, the despicable vacuousness of bourgeoisie existence. Cynics of this kind frequently dine at Papa's table. What has become of the dreams of our youth? They ask, with a smug, disillusioned air. Those years are long gone, and life's a bitch. I despise this false lucidity that comes with age. The truth is that they are just like everyone else, nothing more than kids without a clue about what has happened to them, acting big and tough, when in fact all they want is to burst into tears. And yet there's nothing to understand. The problem is that children believe what adults say, and once they're adults themselves, they exact their revenge by deceiving their own children. Life has meaning, and we grown-ups know what it is the universal lie that everyone is supposed to believe. Once you become an adult and you realize that's not true, it's too late. The mystery remains intact, but all your available energy has long ago been wasted on stupid things. All that's left is to anesthetize yourself by trying to hide the fact that you can't find any meaning in your life. And then, the better to convince yourself, you deceive your own children. All our family acquaintances have followed the same path. Their youth spent trying to make the most of their intelligence, squeezing their studies like a lemon to make sure they'd secure a spot among the elite. Then the rest of their lives wandering with a flabbergasted look on their faces, while all that hopefulness has led to such a vain existence. People aim for the stars, and they end up like goldfish in a bowl. I wonder if it wouldn't be simpler just to teach children right from the start that life is absurd. That might deprive you of a few good moments in your childhood, but it would save you a considerable amount of time as an adult. Not to mention the fact that you'd be spared at least one traumatic experience, i.e. the goldfish bowl. I am 12 years old. I live at 7 Rue de Grenelle in an apartment for rich people. My parents are rich. My family is rich. And my sister and I are, therefore, as good as rich. My father is a parliamentarian, and before that, he was a minister. No doubt he'll end up at the top spot, emptying out the wine cellar at the residence at the Hôtel de l'Essai. As for my mother, well, my mother isn't exactly a genius, but she is educated. She has a PhD in literature. She writes her dinner invitations without mistakes and spends her time bombarding us with literary references. Colombe, stop trying to act like Madame Gourmantes. Or, Pumpkin, you are a regular Sanseverina. Despite all that, despite all this good fortune and all this wealth, I have known for a very long time that the final destination is the goldfish bowl. How do I know? Well, the fact is, I am very intelligent. Exceptionally intelligent. Even now, if you look at children my age, there's an abyss between us. And since I don't really want to stand out, and since intelligence is very highly rated in my family, an exceptionally gifted child would never have a moment's peace. I try to scale back my performance at school, But even so, I always come first. You might think that to pretend to be simply of average intelligence when you are 12 years old like me and have the level of a senior in college is easy. Well, not at all. It really takes an effort to appear stupider than you are. But in a way, this does keep me from dying of boredom. All the time I don't need to spend learning and understanding, I use to imitate the ordinary good pupils. The way they do things, the answers they give, their progress, their concerns, and their minor errors. I read everything that Constance Perret writes. She's second in the class. All her math and French and history, and that way I found out what I have to do. For French, a string of words that are coherent and spelled correctly. For math, the mechanical reproduction of operations devoid of meaning. And for history, a list of events joined by logical connections. But even if you compare me to an adult, I am much smarter than the vast majority. That's the way it is. I'm not particularly proud of this because it's not my doing. But one thing is sure. There's no way I'm going to end up in the goldfish bowl. I've thought this through quite carefully. Even for someone like me, who is super smart and gifted in her studies, and different from everyone else, in fact superior to the vast majority, even for me, life is already all plotted out and so dismal you could cry. No one seems to have thought of the fact that if life is absurd, being a brilliant success has no greater value than being a failure. It's just more comfortable. And even then, I think lucidity gives your success a bitter taste, whereas mediocrity still leaves hope for something. So, I've made up my mind. I'm about to leave childhood behind, and in spite of my conviction that life is a farce, I don't think it can hold out until the end. We are basically programmed to believe in something that doesn't exist. Because we are living creatures, we don't want to suffer. So we spend all of our energy persuading ourselves that there are things that are worthwhile. And that is why life has meaning. I may be very intelligent, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to struggle against this biological tendency. When I join the adults in the rat race, will I still be able to confront this feeling of absurdity? I don't think so. That's why I've made up my mind. At the end of the school year, on the day I turn 13, June 16th, I will commit suicide. Careful now. I have no intention of making a big deal out of it, as if it was an act of bravery or defiance. Besides, it's in my best interest that no one suspect a thing. Adults have this neurotic relationship with death. It gets blown out of all proportion. They make a huge deal out of it, when in fact, it's really the most banal thing there is. What I care about, actually, is not the thing in itself, but the way it's done. My Japanese side, obviously, is inclined towards seppuku. When I say my Japanese side, what I mean is my love for Japan. I'm in the 8th grade, so naturally I chose Japanese as my second foreign language. The teacher isn't great. He swallows his words in French and spends his time scratching his head as if he were puzzled. But the textbook isn't bad, and since the start of the year, I've made huge progress. I hope in a few months to be able to read my favorite manga in the original. Maman doesn't understand why a little girl as gifted as you are wants to read manga. I haven't even bothered to explain to her that manga in Japanese doesn't mean anything more than comic book. She thinks I'm high in subculture, and I haven't set her straight on that. In short, in a few months, I might be able to read Taniguchi in Japanese. But back to what we were talking about. I'll have to do it before June 16th, because on June 16th, I'm committing suicide. but not seppuku. It would be full of significance and beauty. But, well, I really have no desire to suffer. In fact, I would hate to suffer. I think that if you have to decide to die, it is precisely because your decision is in the nature of things. So you must do it in a gentle way. Dying must be a delicate passage, a sweet slipping away to rest. There are people who commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the 4th floor, or swallowing bleach, or even hanging themselves. That's senseless, obscene even. What is the point of dying if not to not suffer? I've devoted great care to planning how I'll exit the scene. Every month for the last year, I've been pilfering a sleeping pill from Maman's box on the night table. She takes so many that she wouldn't even notice if I took one every day, but I've decided to be particularly careful. You can't leave anything to chance when you've made a decision that most people won't understand. You can't imagine how quickly people will get into the way of your most heartfelt plans in the name of such trifles as the meaning of life or love of mankind. Oh, and then there is the sacred nature of childhood. Therefore, I'm headed slowly towards the date of June 16th, and I'm not afraid. A few regrets, maybe, but the world in its present state is no place for princesses. Having said that, simply because you've made plans to die doesn't mean you have to vegetate like some rotting piece of cabbage. Quite the contrary. The main thing isn't about dying or how old you are when you die. It's what you are doing the moment you die. In Taniguchi, the heroes die while climbing Mount Everest. Since I haven't the slightest chance of taking a stab at K2 or the Grandes Horaces before June 16th, my own personal Everest will be an intellectual endeavor. I have set as my goal to have the greatest number of possible profound thoughts and to write them down in this notebook. Even if nothing has any meaning, the mind at least can give it a shot, don't you think? But since I have this big thing about Japan, I've added one requirement. These profound thoughts have to be formulated like a little Japanese poem, either a haiku, 3 lines, or a tanka, 5 lines. My favorite haiku is by Basho. The fisherman's hut, mixed with little shrimp, some crickets. Now that's no goldfish bowl, is it? That's what I call poetry. But in the world I live in, there's less poetry than in a Japanese fisherman's hut. And do you think it's normal for 4 people to live in 4,000 square feet when tons of other people, perhaps some pote mode among them, don't even have a decent place to live and are crammed together, 15 or 20 in 200 square feet? When this summer, I heard in the news that some Africans had died because a fire had started in the stairway of their rundown tenement. I had an idea. Those Africans have the goldfish bowl right there in front of them all day long. They can't escape through storytelling. But my parents in Colombia are convinced they're swimming in the ocean just because they live in their 4,000 square feet with their piles of furniture and paintings. So, on June 16th, I intend to refresh their Peabane memories. I am going to set fire to the apartment with the barbecue lighter. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a criminal. I'll do it when there's no one around. The 16th of June is a Saturday, and on Saturdays, Colombe goes to see Tibert. Maman is at yoga, Papa is at his club, and as for me, I'll stay home. I'll evacuate the cats to the window, and I'll call the fire department early enough so that there won't be any victims. And then I'll go off quietly to Grandma's with my pills to sleep. With no more apartment and no more daughter, maybe they'll give some thought to all those dead Africans. Don't you suppose?